Okay, our last page is matching. So we have all these little figures, and I'm going to try to scoot this up. You can see up here, we're just going to fill in these blanks, right? Okay, so let me scoot this up to see what we have. So they've given us an equation in the first column, the data table in the second column, the graph in the third column, and then they're talking about the y-intercept, etc. in the fourth column. Okay, so easiest thing I would think would be to take the equation and put it into our calculators. So I'm going to pull the calculator up. And let me get to a graph. We'll do Control Doc to get to a new page, and I'm going to add a graph. Okay, so the first problem was y equals 2 to the exponent of x and then minus 2. So 2, and then my exponent is x, and minus 2. So let's see what that looks like graphed. Okay, let's notice a few things before we flip back to the page, okay? Okay, my y-intercept, oh sorry, here we go. My y-intercept is right here. That is at 0, -1. So I'm going to write this over to the side. Y-intercept is at 0, -1. Let's see, what else do we need to know? It definitely is a growth, right? So maybe we can identify the graph. And then let's look at a data table real quickly. See what we can fill in. So if I go Control T over here, Control T, and now I've got a data table, and let me write down what we had. Okay, so in my data table I have a -1 was a -1.5, 0 was at -1, 1 is at 0, and 2 is at 2. Okay, so now let's go back to our paper. Okay, it's a little hard to see, but let's try to find the data table. It looks like the data table is because they're all -1, 0, 1, and 2, right? So we need a -1.5, -1, and then a 0 and a 2 for the y column. And this is 1/2. This is a -3/2, which is the same thing as -1.5, -1, 0, and 2. Okay, so B looks like we're using B. So these two go together. Let's just circle all the ones that match. All right, and then we're looking for the graph. Remember, it was at, the y-intercept was at -1, so no, no, yes, and it was a growth, so it looks like that one goes there. And then the y-intercept, 0, 2, no, 0, -1, yes, and this is it, so 0, -1. Okay, so those go together. All right, let me get rid of this. All right, let's try the next one. We'll do another color. So it is y equals 2 at raised to the x power -1. Okay, let's go back to the graph. Okay, I'm going to do another document. So Control Doc, oh sorry, another page to get to a new page. All right, so I'm adding a graph again. Ignore the circles, please. That's from, our other paper. So it's going to be y equals 2 raised to the x power, and then -1. Okay, let's see what that looks like. All right, let's identify some information. It is a growth. It is the y-intercept is at 0, 0. Okay, and let's identify the data table. So if I do Control T, that'll take me to my table. All right. So I started all my tables at -1, didn't I? Let me go there. Okay, so we have -1, 0, 1, and 2. So at -1, it was a -0.5 or a -1/2. And then we had 0, and then 1, and then 3. Okay, let's go see what we can find on the paper. Okay, so this time we're going to use this pink color. And it was a growth, so obviously it's not this one, but it was crossing at 0, 0 for my y-intercept. And then the graph was a negative 1/2 for my y, a 0, a 1, and a 3. So it looks like it's this one. And then over here, if it's at 0, 0 for my y-intercept, we have 2. And let's look at what's happening. This one says it's an x-axis reflection. So that means this is going to be going the opposite direction. So I don't think it's going to be this one, so it must be this one, the 0, 0. Okay, let's look at the next one. It is a negative 2x raised to the x power plus 1. So let's try that one in the calculator. Okay, let's look at what we have. It is y equals the negative 2x. Sorry. Okay, negative 2 raised to the x power, and then plus 1. So there's our one that is a decay. So again, let's see what we can come up with for the data table. So I'm going to do Control T. And we need it to be at negative 1. Okay, and so the data table, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. We have 0.5 or 1/2, 0, negative 1, and negative 3. Okay, so let's flip over to the other paper. Okay, so let's see what we have. This is the one we're doing. So this is my data table. So it looks like it's going to be this one. We already know what the graph is going to look like. And then at 0, 0 is my y-intercept, and it is a reflection across the x-axis. So it's going to be that one. So then by default, of course, we will see that this one, 2 raised to the x power plus 1, this would be the graph. And this, that would be the data table. This would be the graph. And then this is going to be our, what it is verbally. Okay, so let me scoot back up to the top and see if we can't fill that information in. Okay, so 21, the data table was B. The graph was the triple I's, and then the verbal was a double B. 22, the data table was D, the graph was double I, and the verbal was double C. 23 was A, and then the I and the V, and double D. 24 was C, I, and then double A. All right, good luck on your test.